Good morning. Calling our city pre-commission meeting to order at 8 a.m. Good to see everyone this morning. Hopefully you've had a great week. All right, as we look through our agenda, we'll go down to item number 8 regarding the consent agenda. Of course, we have the minutes, and then there's the approval to grant the requested power easement at 925 Hatcher Drive. Any questions about any of these? All right.
Then we'll have an add-on to the consent agenda too.
You
You want to go ahead and talk about that?
Yes.
Yes. So there's I guess an accident or a slip and fall off a splash pad. I'm not sure how long ago.
Several years, about 2 years.
A couple years ago. Insurance council covered it. There was no deductible for the city's insurance policy, and they apparently had a mediation about a month ago and settled it. And so they signed a settlement agreement. Of course, when you go to mediation, you can only settle contingent upon the commission approval. So they have a signed settlement agreement for our consideration. So we thought we'd put that on the consent agenda and get that approved. So that way, that case will be dismissed. And again, no deductible. It's totally covered by insurance.
No qualms from anything from you, Judy, on that?
No.
Okay. All right.
So we can add that to the consent
We'll
for
add that to
Tuesday.
the consent.
Okay. New business number 10. That'll be the discussion and a possible approval to accept proposal from Gulf Coast Utility Contractors. Any questions about that one?
Number 10. Nope.
No questions?
GCUC.
All right. And then number 11, discussion and possible approval to reestablish the Building Contractors Examining Board. And then we have the applications for the new members of this Reestablished Building Contractors Examining Board. Now, this has been something we've been working on since I was elected to office, so good to see it's coming to fruition. So thank you and the team for working on this to get this underway.
I definitely think Charles Van Adder, our new building inspector, he has been working on this since he was hired. And you can see that the commission approved this, I think it was 2 years ago. And the reason we didn't put it on the consent agenda because of the fact that we just wanted you to be aware of and see the names. But if we can move that to consent agenda, please let me know.
I just had one question was, I noticed that some of them are Lynn Haven residents. Is that normal for that board, for them not to be a Lynn Haven resident?
They have to, the business has to be located in Lynn Haven.
The business has to be located in Lynn Haven, he said.
Oh, I got you.
Let's move it to consent if we can do that.
All right, any issues with moving it to the consent agenda?
I haven't even looked at the applicants, but that's fine.
Okay.
If I come up with anything, I'll let you know.
All right. Any problems with moving that to consent agenda, Commissioner Ward?
No.
Commissioner Purnell?
I'm good.
All right, so if we can move that to consent agenda. Number 12, discussion and possible approval to grant the RFQ to Stantec to conduct the citywide vulnerability assessment. Any questions about that one? All right, no questions about that one. Agenda item number 13, discussion and possible approval of resolution 2022. And this is to amend our debt review committee, renaming the debt review committee as the financial review committee. City Attorney.
Yeah, with the help of the mayor, we put a resolution together, basically amending last year's resolution for debt review, and just converted that to the finance review committee and added a few duties about budget review. But it's really that simple. So right now the plan is to have that same committee, and then they'll just have the added duties of reviewing the budget and making recommendations during budget season. Pretty much
Why
it.
did we change the name?
Because it's not just debt anymore.
Yeah, I think originally they were just reviewing the
Yeah.
city
Yeah.
existing debts, and now they're looking at
Everything.
really everything.
Okay.
Any questions regarding that committee or the amendments to the debt review committee to the finance review committee.
Has anyone really sat down and discussed it with all the board members? Just out of curiosity on that committee?
I have talked with Frank Hall about it.
Okay.
And then he, from my understanding, communicated with the other members on the committee, and they were okay
They're
with,
cool with it?
transitioning into that budget review committee. So
I just don't want to spring a surprise on them.
yeah, yeah.
Guess what,
So
guys?
I have talked with him, and from my understanding, he's talked with them. So I haven't communicated directly with each individual board member, but I have communicated with the chairman. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
The only thing I have, and I know we've talked this to death, but I'd like to add it in there that they meet a minimum of once a quarter to review some of the reports and expenses. And I also would like to have them review our rates and fees. And when I say rates and fees, I mean like utility rates and our stormwater assessment fee. And those are the couple things I would like to see added to it. But other than that, I'm good to go on it.
In regarding to reviewing our rates and fees, I mean, wouldn't that be something that our city manager would do and then recommend that to us, and then we ourselves as the commission would do that also?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
A lot of times you
do
get
that.
a rate study.
Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah, the city attorney.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot with your utility rates and fees. A lot. I mean, especially utility rates. I mean, oftentimes you'll get a rate study. It wouldn't be done really by a volunteer board. I don't know what. All they could really do is look at what other cities are doing.
Well, the reason I bring it up is you guys remember when we did the stormwater assessment fee and we had all those workshops. And I remember when I was campaigning, I told a lot of people about it, and we didn't get a whole lot of kickback from it until the actual final day that we had to vote on it. And I just think it would be a good idea to have the residents' perspective on that, so that when people come and talk to us, say, hey, we had residents look at this also, and on top of what we discussed where we had someone else look at it. So that's my view on it.
I think because of the way the resolution is written, it does allow us the liberty to assign certain tasks to them, as opposed to making that a direct task or an ongoing task of that committee. That if that's something that we think that they need to do, then that would be something that we could assign at that particular time, as opposed to saying this is something that you're required to do, because now we're pulling them maybe out of their pre-review, because remember we're talking about asking them to review the budget, asking them to review our debt, and then now we're adding another element of requiring them to review utility rates, stormwater assessments. And so that may be something that could, deter them from wanting to be a part of the committee, if we add too many particular duties instead of saying, okay, hey, this is a specific thing that we would like for you, to do. And I do understand your point, but I also think, you probably see after being on the commission a little over a year now, even when we get recommendations from the planning board and they all say yay and it still comes to us, we still get pushback from the community when it's something that, particular residents don't like. So I'm not sure how many committees something could go through, especially when you're talking about adding more taxes or increasing someone's fees that they're going to be happy with. So if it comes through and the stormwater assessment says, hey, we need to increase it in order to do X, Y, Z, or we need to increase our utility rates in order to get the new heads that we need for the waste management plant, I don't think any amount of committees or approval from volunteer committees is going to persuade people to want to increase their property taxes in order to help, offset those fees that will incur during that time. So, but I think the amendment allows enough flexibility that if there's some particular task that we would like for someone to look into, then that we could assign that particular task to them.
My only worry is if we start it and then they come back and like, hey, we didn't give you any direction or something like that. So, I mean, I'm fine with, if we just tell them or we say, hey, this is what we want to do. But I feel like if we don't put it in writing, then they're going to be like, well, you guys didn't give us any direction.
I think if there's a particular assignment, then there'll be direction on this is your parameters of what you do. If we're talking specifically about the utility and stormwater assessment, I don't think we just say, hey, go review those rates. That we'll have specific goals in mind of what we're asking them to do. timelines and, hey, here's the outcome that we're looking for. But again, as city attorney said, and as we've seen in the past, that's really been done by someone else to do those different rates and assessments and fees for us. When it came to the stormwater assessment, I'm not sure if a volunteer committee would want to do what Stantec did for the stormwater. Was that Stantec for the stormwater? For the stormwater assessment.
I'm not telling them to do what Stantec did. They can look at what Stantec did and look at it and be like, all right, this all makes sense, Like, for example, I know that Stantec's supposed to come back and talk to us like about vacant lots, and that's something I wish I'd looked more into. And if we had a financial review committee, maybe they would have looked at it like, hey, this vacant lot thing doesn't make sense. Maybe we need to discuss it more. It's stuff like that. So I don't expect them to do the whole entire study because they're not the
But I don't
subject
know.
matter experts on that. That's why we hire someone like Stantec to do that.
Right. But what you're asking now with the vacant lot part, that really isn't numbers. When we're talking about a financial review, we're looking at numbers, black and white. We're looking at budgets. And I do think from that perspective, the utilities and stormwater assessment is going to be covered in the budget. As they're doing the budget review for the stormwater department, public works, public utilities, it's a simple, going to public utilities saying, hey, do we need to increase rates based on the projects that we have coming up, based on the growth of our city? So I think it falls under what they'll be doing in the budget review, just not a particular study on that particular issue.
Yeah.
It's broad. I mean, because they're supposed to look at your budget and any possible deficits. So if they think, hey, you need to bump up your utility rates, and that's going to be part of what they look at. And you also have the line in here that says, they can perform other review as requested by the commissioner or the mayor.
Yeah.
So at any point in time during
Plus
budget
it's-
season, you can tell them, hey, did you check out the rates?
And the
They'll
committee's
do it.
probably only going to last about 2 years anyway. Because as soon as they get tired of doing it, no one else is going to sign up for it. So
Appreciate the negativity.
just the truth.
No, I'm serious. I mean,
It's truth.
when you do it like that, it makes it sound like, oh, don't worry about it. It's only going to go a couple of years. Come on.
It's true.
This is something I think is very, very important. I think if we had something like this in the past, it may have prevented some of the things that happened. And and this, like I said before, this thing may evolve into something different than what I'm envisioning. But I think it's important to get residents involved in this, because I think the more residents we get involved in this, the less likelihood that we get what we had happen in the past with a federal indictment.
We have 2 residents here this morning. Residents aren't going to, well, I'm not going to be negative. We'll go along with it.
Any other comments regarding agenda item number 13?
No, I'm good.
All right. Agenda item number 14, this is the first reading, ordinance number 1139. Proposed amendments to the ULDC. Any questions for planning director for that?
Amanda will do a whole presentation, right, on Tuesday?
It's just what we were extending the CRA overlay, right? Basically.
Well, actually, yeah, if I could ask you, because usually with this being the first reading by title only, I wouldn't give the presentation until the public hearing, which is the second reading. If you wanted me to do a presentation at both, I'm happy to do it if you just let me know. But normally it would be the second reading, the public hearing.
We probably should have,
Both?
we probably should have presented today so that you guys would have had a little bit more information, knowledge, and
We did it.
yeah.
It was on the agenda.
Yeah,
Not this last commission meeting, but the one before. I gave you a whole presentation. I went through the whole thing, pointed out all the changes.
Okay,
If you
okay,
recall.
and it's in here?
Yes.
I just
Yes,
haven't
the
had it.
ordinance
Yes.
is in here. All of the text that's struck through is the old stuff that's coming out.
Okay,
All new stuff is
Underlined.
bold and underlined. But I will definitely be doing a presentation on the public hearing, the second reading. The first reading is usually by title only, but if you would want me to do a presentation, the same presentation again, I can.
no, this is all about the
What-
heights and all that kind of,
Yes.
and the signs.
Yes, ma'am.
Just going along with the CRA guidelines.
Speaking of the signs, I did talk with Ben about the height of the signs and not that I'm against the height of the signs, but I was going through a town. I can't remember which town I was going through over the past few weeks, and instead of having like the monument signs, they just had sort of the big sign at 10 feet, at the height of 10 feet. So was asking him, is it something that we could possibly review again in the next couple of years, just to see what do our businesses do when they put their signs up. If our vision for lessening the height of the signs is for them to create monument signs, and then we notice monument signs aren't going up, but other type of signs, then is it something that we would like to review to go back and say, okay, hey, what we want them to actually have monument signs, if that's the vision that we're having. And I only saw that because as I was going through this town, like, these are only 10 feet high, but they're still like 20 feet wide.
Wow.
So that was something that I mentioned to him a couple of weeks ago when I saw that and thought about it.
We could put in the.
Amanda, could you talk a little louder? Because Commissioner Rourke has to hear as well.
You could request or require the monument signs now because we haven't had the first reading of the ordinance.
Okay.
So we could make that amendment and put that in there so that it's there for the first reading. If you wanted that, if that was something that you wanted to require, I could put that in there.
Okay. Well, it's really up to the board. It was just something I thought about, that if that's what we were hoping that people would do by changing that,
I think.
then it's possible that people don't necessarily have to do that if that's not what we're asking them to do.
Yeah.
Now, is the monument sign the type that we dealt with yesterday on 77 from the ground up?
That I wouldn't. That's a really tall sign. I wouldn't really. That's not normally what you would get from monument sign. Monument sign is usually you have your brick or something. It's lower. It's a more attractive sign, not just a straight up wooden.
Yeah.
thing. Yeah.
Well, that whole situation yesterday, you can't see 77 because it totally blocks your view.
They've submitted a sign permit application which is incomplete. So we're reviewing that and we'll be letting them know what they need to do because they haven't even submitted a complete form.
Right.
And they're not grandfathered in because it was a total change of business. So if there was one there before and they're saying they're just putting another sign where it can't be grandfathered in, so we're looking at it as though it's a new sign.
Yeah. Will they, and I don't mean take away from what we're discussing, but are they going to be required to move that sign back away from the
If
street?
it is in the way of like the site visibility, which I think the building official went out there and looked at it and thought that it was. So yeah.
They're gonna remove the plywood today. They are going to, until they get approval to our office.
Okay.
Yeah, so we'll make sure that whatever sign goes there is not in the way of the traffic.
Being able to pull out and
visibility.
see.
Yes, ma'am.
Sure.
Awesome.
All right. Any other questions for Amanda?
Did you want us to change the language so that we require monument signs, or do you want us to just go with what we've got for now and see what happens?
I mean, I'm okay with what we have. It was just something that I thought about when I saw it in other city enlisted commission. Is that something that they would want to change? Now I'm okay with it. Just if that's our vision of what we're hoping people would do, then we can't hope that that's what people would do. We not say this is what you have to do, because you're going to have, as we see working in government, people that are going to push the limits of what they can or can't do based on the parameters that we put in place. So if we want people to have monument signs moving forward, then that's something that we should change. Yeah. So any
It's a
thoughts
tough
from
one.
the commission on it?
It's a tough one for me because I mean I do think the monument signs look better along the corridor aesthetically, but on the flip side I also don't want to handcuff people too much.
Yeah.
So I try to err, I guess, on the side of freedom as best I can. So I guess we'll just leave it the same as it is.
And we'll see what it looks like in
Yeah.
Yeah.
a couple of years.
And we do have restrictions on the size of the sign, dependent upon how much linear foot they have. So if you have, 600 feet, you're going to be allowed a bigger sign than if you just have, 300 feet or whatever.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. And one other thing before we go, Pat, were you here whenever attorney mentioned about moving this up to the? Okay. All right. Anything else before we dismiss for today?
Yes, I'm going to do Jamie this week.
All
and
right.
come in at the end with a couple of issues. Two things. One, dog park, I know I've already talked to, Officer Blaylock, and basically I was, drug in, no pun intended, drug into a big situation that took place at the dog park last night.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it's with the people that are there every night at 6, and then they have a newcomer, and I went down there and took a picture of the sign this morning because he's breaking every rule on the sign. So I've instructed those people, if it happens again, or when it happens, unfortunately, just to call the police department and have them come down and, you know, have them adhere to the rules. It was a fiasco. Adults screaming as they were grabbing their dogs and leaving the park. It was a screaming match, and this gentleman proceeded to say he went to the police department, and he came back without his dog, and I guess it was just like a 3-ring circus from everything that I was told. And he brings in treats for all the dogs, which it's not permitted, number one, but he doesn't ask permission of the owners. These people are real serious about their dogs now.
And what
serious.
they eat. Yeah.
And what they eat.
Yeah.
And I guess he just throws treats out to all the dogs. And one owner said, I don't mind him having a treat, but I want you to make him sit before you give him the treat. He just throws them out like popcorn, and there goes that. And so they were upset. And
Wow.
then his dog jumps up on the picnic table and shakes out all the mud and the dirt, and all these people are sitting at the picnic table with their purses and their phones. And somebody finally gave the dog a scoot after they all said, "Get your dog off the table." He said, "I'm not telling my dog to get off the table. This is a dog park. This is the dog's table." Anyway, so they went round. Yeah, they went round and round. Somebody shoved his dog off the table
I never
Salvador
said.
Dali
and said,
at the dog park.
yeah. And so then that turned into a big hoopla. And anyway, bottom line, I think we have it straightened out. They've been instructed just to call the police department.
Right, because did
And then
anyone
they-
call last night, the police
No.
department?
No, according to this man, he came down to the police department, but it turns out he didn't.
You were, okay.
He was just
okay.
yakking.
All right.
So, yeah, no, it's just one of those things. I'm going, oh my God, you guys are in your 60s and 70s. But it turned
Yes.
into a,
They should call the police department
Yes.
immediately.
I'm pretty sure
Yeah.
the charter says the mayor has to get involved in all dog related.
oh,
issues.
dog related issues.
We're going to have to talk to the charter review committee about that one.
You must show up and separate.
That's right.
It's an old rule.
Mhm. And then I guess there were, I was laughing when they were telling the story because I'm going, really? I just couldn't even fathom.
Yeah.
People were going, shut up, shut up, shut up. I said, shut up.
Good old disorderly conduct.
Yes. And
But they have to call.
they have to call. That's
It's like
exactly,
beating your dog or
That's-
spanking your dog after he does something stupid.
that's exactly what I said. Just
Call
call.
us.
Don't get
please.
into the,
Maybe
That's
we
right.
need to add that to the sign, like ours.
That's not a bad idea.
well, the sign is very,
Yeah.
the sign is very explicit. It says you must have control.
It's your emergency.
Says you must have control of your dog.
That's
Do
right.
not bring human food inside the gate. Do not bring dog food inside the gate. I mean, all the rules are right there.
Right.
They're right there. So all they
got an
have to do
ID
is
on
they
this
go read
fella?
the sign, huh?
You got an ID on this renting
Oh
it?
yeah, we know who he is.
Okay.
Yeah, we know who he is.
Okay.
So anyway,
Thanks for getting into the middle of that for us.
yes, it was. I really had to keep from laughing. I thought, yeah.
I'm thinking all the things going on in the world, and this is
Uh-huh.
what I'm doing tonight.
Yeah, but this group of people, I was shocked. I mean,
Wow.
this man must have a real talent for pushing buttons because he got to all of them.
Because there is a group. I mean, they're down there every night.
Yes, I
I
know.
drive down there. And, I mean, so we could have dealt with it, but
They go down and visit for an hour, 2 hours, and sit around the
That's
table
right.
while the dogs play and they pick up poop and all. There doesn't sound like fun to me, but they all do it, and that's their thing.
a
So,
little Jerry Springer action.
oh yeah, or Maury Provich going to have to do DNA pretty soon. DNA and take a lie detector test. Okay, and then my other subject, which is not so popular and not funny at all, from our last administration. This has nothing to do with Vicky or this city manager. It happened back in 2018. I do believe that Mr. White was probably well on his way to doing his thing. About regarding the nepotism ordinance we have. He wrote and I made copies because I had never seen this. I know you guys probably have never seen it. Give one to them. I think I made enough for everybody.
Jamie, you have to visualize this.
Yeah, visualize.
Okay.
Our nepotism and
Is it
our
from the employee
nepotism.
handbook?
Yes, yes, sir, it is.
Okay, I know
Yes.
what you're talking about.
Okay, it's 125, I believe, Jamie. Yeah, 125. Okay, that part of our rules and regulations is fine. It's on target. It's always been that way, whatnot. But then on April 24th, 2018, Jamie, Mr. White wrote a acknowledgement, whatever that is, I'm not sure, but this is something he put in writing, so he had it to fall back on. He goes on to write, this is when, you guys weren't here then, but this is when they introduced the new employee policy. It was like 81 pages. I never heard, I remember him and I having a lot of direct conversation about it because it was written in a way that anybody could set up anybody, put drugs in their car, whatever. It was bizarre, and it's still our policy, is my understanding. I would like to see us readdress this, maybe in a couple of meetings or whatever, and look at it and see. What he did was he wrote a letter or an acknowledgement, basically saying that the policy is null and void. He can change it whenever he wants. Isn't that what it said? He can, I understand that City of Lynn Haven may change, modify, suspend, interrupt, or cancel in whole or part any of the published or unpublished personnel policies or practices with or without notice at its sole discretion without giving cause or justification to any employee. Holy moly. Only he would write something like that, and I mean that. I'm not going to apologize for saying that. So this really needs to be addressed because it's wrong.
How does it
Anyway,
hold water?
what's
Kevin?
that?
I was saying, how does it hold water? I mean, you can't
I
just
think
write a
that would have
memo.
been, well, that's the acknowledgement. So probably when somebody's hired, they
They
get their
sign
they get
off
their
on that.
personnel manual, and that's page one.
Yeah.
So that's like, hey, I got it. I understand. Here's the rules, but they're subject to
Yes.
change.
Yes.
In the full
Without
discretion.
notice, without
So, I
telling
mean, it
anybody.
holds water because they sign it when they get hired, and
Yes.
that's part of
They
what
do.
they receive.
Anyway, I believe
Okay,
it
so
definitely has to be addressed.
I'm sorry. So it's not
So that is
the
part
memo.
of
The memo, or what is written here, is not trying to override
No, well, does
the ordinance.
no, it's not trying to override it. It just says
But it does.
I
it
can
does.
override it at my sole discretion.
Right.
Yeah. But
The
it
city
does.
or the city
So-
man-
So that's
city
why
or
I'm
city
saying, how
manager.
does it even hold water? That's like putting a rule in that violates the Constitution. You know what I mean? It's like, well, yeah, you can try
I
to
mean,
say
it's a
but
personnel policy thing. So I mean, obviously, the city commission could change it
Right.
at any point in time when somebody's hired. Or it's a at
And I
will.
will tell you that HR and I are working on bringing some changes to you that we see are very much conflicts.
Well, when,
And
yeah.
I just see they are. And they hold us hostage and the employees hostage to some things that we really feel like are the, employees shouldn't be in that situation.
Right.
And so I just know, I didn't write this, but I do know it did go through legal. I do know that commission had it over 4 or 5 months, and all of those things, and it was passed by the commission.
So the commission approved.
Yes, sir.
They sure did back in
Yes.
2018. Anyway, I would like to see it brought forward again so we can take care of the situation. This, like you said, why write a 81-page personnel file or
change.
folder
if you just-
and then have this that says I'm going to do whatever I darn well please when I want with whom I want. And I believe in the nepotism back then in 2017. It might have been 18. We had 2 police officers that got married. One was forced to quit. I mean, she was forced to quit. And I believe,
She wasn't forced.
oh, really? She just quit.
Yeah, she moved on.
Okay.
It was before my reign, but
Yeah.
I'm familiar. Yes.
Mhm, yeah. I heard a lot about that one too. But anyway, I just feel like we need to address this. how do I want to say this? Because I don't want to get anybody involved. I received information that current employees were complaining because we hired a current employee's family member, which is totally against the nepotism ordinance. But then when you back it up with this that says you can do whatever you want, then I think we just need to address it.
So
Because it offends the other employees. It offends the other city employees.
So for clarity, are you asking us just to look at the policy 125 as it relates to this acknowledgement page?
No, policy 125 is very clear, and it's always been there. I have
What
no,
I'm asking is, are you wanting us to look at, as the commission, to look at the entire personnel policy employee manual, or which is fine.
Right.
I'm just trying to understand what is our objective for what you're bringing this to us for today.
I'm bringing this to you for today because we have hired 2 family members that already have family members that work here, and it's definitely against the nepotism part of this contract.
So you want to null and void the acknowledgement, basically. You want the commission to vote that we're not going to acknowledge this anymore.
Right, that we're gonna go by what's in there, but I agree with the city manager too. There are probably things that need to be updated in that 81. Here's the deal, when that whole policy was presented to the commission, the whole personnel policy, as we read through all 80 some pages, in about 6 or 7 pages, it still said, the Gulf County Co-op. He actually took their policy, brought it here, and didn't remove some of their names on some of it. It was very obvious that it was just brought here and put in place.
So one of my questions would be, and I know we're saying that the previous city manager did this, but if this was passed by the previous city commission, why wasn't it addressed during that time?
Right. Well, to my knowledge, we weren't hiring family members like we are now. And I'm
But I mean-
against that.
I'm going to clarify that. There have been only 2 people that have been hired, and we have been in dire need of employees. These people were qualified, and I did not want the services of those 2 departments to go unattended to. And so that's the only reason that we're hired. I've been here almost 4 years, and those are the only 2 employees I know that I have approved to be hired, because I think about the citizens first of how we're going to meet those services. And if there are people in place that can do that, then yes. So that's the only reason those. Other than that, I don't look at going hiring, mom and dad and wife and spouse and all of those things, because I know what the policy says.
Yeah.
So those to me, and if I were rewriting that, I would say something of the fact, nepotism is very, very clear, but if there are no other candidates and there's an emergency or in dire need of, I don't mind that, but you got to continue to give the residents their services.
Yeah, you can have a good nepotism policy and still allow it in a different department.
That's right.
No supervisory.
That's
You know what I'm saying?
exactly
You can
right.
have them
We
totally
need to
separate.
change it.
Yeah,
Well, that's what I'm
that's
saying.
exactly right.
Instead of
It
a
needs to be
catch-all,
changed.
a
That's
catch-all
right.
acknowledgement,
And
That's
so,
if there's part of those 81
Right.
pages that need,
Yeah.
Because
like
neither
nepotism.
one of those employees report directly
Well, yeah.
to the employees that work here. Neither one of
And
them.
that's how it
Right.
You
So-
got somebody in public works
so
or
my-
somebody.
That's exactly
Correct.
that's exactly
Voted
right.
in 2018.
Well,
So,
what was going on in 2018? You didn't argue
Commissioner
with.
Ward,
Oh,
yeah, so if I understand this right, any change to the employee
The-
handbook
the
has to come
DAC
to the
was spent.
commission for approval.
no.
No, it's
No.
Jamie. The letter here says that they can do whatever they want, hire whoever they want, and not tell you about it, not write to you, not. We're just going to ignore the policy. That's basically what the acknowledgement says.
But now the previous commission approved this though, right?
Yeah.
And so it's not like it was something that was oblivious to the previous commission to give that power to the city manager to change the policies as needed. for
Go
that
back and
particular
watch the
situation.
meetings. I think there was one meeting on this, if I remember correctly, and we did not even go over those 80 some pages. You were there, weren't you?
I was there, and
We didn't even go through the 80 some pages. I brought up a few items on the policy that just did not make sense.
Right.
There were
Can I say
things.
something? that policy manual needs to be completely relooked at.
Amen.
I mean, we have the accredited policies that the police department follows. Ms. Gaynor and I had this conversation on this exact topic. And I think that one's way too, it's not broad, it's very,
It's really
it's
restricted.
very strict.
Yeah, it is.
But when you run into a situation where you need to hire an employee, I mean, I've been in this business 30 years, and you can hire a relative as long as that relative's not supervised by another relative and or in another division. But I think we're missing the boat a lot of times by not. And I understand the circumstances that the city was in at one time, but I'm telling you, that policy manual sucks. I'm just going to call it what it is.
Well,
Yeah.
he brought it,
Well,
like I say, he brought it
Hey,
from
it was
the
written
co-op.
by-
Co-op.
Brought it
Well,
from the
it was
co-op,
written
took their name out and.
Well, you just basically copy and paste it. I'm sorry.
Yes.
And so that is not conducive. It may be conducive to a power company, but it's not conducive to a city government.
And-
And again, I fall under a different set of rules because of the accreditation, but
Seminole with a gun.
it is what it is. Me and Ms.
And-
Gaynor are talking about it.
And the way, and just so clarification for Commissioner Ward, Commissioner Ward, my understanding, if something is literally like another policy needs to be inserted in there, that comes to the commission. I've never, that is my understanding. If you inserted another policy that the commission has not approved, that has to come to them. And so I would never do anything else but bring it to you. But will I follow the policy that's there? Absolutely.
Right.
And then my other point is, I think it's very imperative that we who are in the weeds working every day, knowing our staff every day, bring you some changes instead of commission making changes because you don't know all the inner workings every day that we have to do. You can accept or reject those changes, absolutely, or but allow us to do that. We've been working on redoing this policy now for about 4 or 5 months because we want to bring it all to you. It's a very large document, and we've gone through every single page line by line. This is one of the ones we're going to bring to you, but allow us to do that first. You can have several workshops on it and then go that route. And Commissioner Ward, do you agree with that, or is that something you were thinking
Yeah,
about?
no, that makes total sense. The only question I had is if you have a policy in there and you make a change to the policy, does that have to go to the commission?
No, according
According to
to
the acknowledgement
This
letter.
acknowledgement, you
according
can do
to
whatever you
this
want.
You can
acknowledgement,
waive,
Yeah.
basically
you can
waive.
waive that.
You can do whatever you want.
Okay.
Yeah.
Policy's just a waste of
So
paper.
that is something that would need to be changed, and I don't have a problem with it. I really don't.
Commissioner Perno?
I think we should bring this to the agenda on Tuesday, and as commission vote on a timeline for them to bring it back to us and make it
Right.
make it so we acknowledge it and make a motion on it and actually set the wheels in motion formally.
Yeah.
That way we acknowledge it as a commission. And even though Ms. Gaynor's already working behind the scenes, but let's just put a timeline on when they can bring it to us.
Absolutely.
And so we let the public know that we're serious and we want to see the changes made.
And let our employees, our current employees know.
Chief
that.
Ramey,
you're working
I
on it.
appreciate you
Yeah.
so much. Thank you for your candor. You are the best looking Seminole with a gun in a bag. I want to get a photo with you.
Photo.
I love Seminoles, so
I do
when
too,
see
brother.
a man
I'm
in
right
a
there with you.
Seminole shirt. And
30 days.
yep,
All right.
Can't wait.
yeah, 30 days yesterday
I got one more.
till LSU.
This
City,
would be
city
Commissioner
attorney.
Work's favorite thing, preemption. A few years ago, the state preempted smoking laws. Remember they did the Florida Clean Indoor Air Act?
Yeah.
And so the state was in charge of all smoking rules. They actually loosened up on that effective July 1, and it's now just the Florida Clean Air Act. They struck out indoor. And so now cities and counties are allowed to restrict smoking in public parks and public beaches.
I was going to ask you
So
about that.
I haven't looked at our Parks and Rec ordinance, but if it was preempted, if we had something in there, we shouldn't have. But what I want to ask is, do we have a problem with smoking in public beaches and parks? And do we want to, if we want to ban that, we are now allowed to as a city.
I think you'll see a lot of people in their cars. Smoke coming out the side of the window.
We can ban smoking, but you cannot ban smoking unfiltered cigars.
Well, that was what they added last time to the
someone do
ordinance, if I'm not mistaken. They added the vaping, that there was
Mm-hmm.
no smoking in any of the public places. I can get you that, if you remember. I'll get you that ordinance.
Okay. I mean, that was effective July 1, a month ago.
I did receive some resident complaints about smoking in public areas, and I mentioned to them that it was something that was that I know the legislation was looking at, but I couldn't recall if they had passed or not.
Yeah,
passed it. So,
the governor signed that effective July 1.
July 1.
So if we want to ban smoking in public beaches and public parks, we have to do an ordinance and do it. And we'll look at what ordinance we have.
Yeah,
already,
it's
because-
one already in place.
I want to ban it.
You may look
Say
at
I wanna
maybe
ban it.
designating an area for it. That's how I sort of was reading it during the legislative session, was having an area. Because if we have either or, then it is going to create, if we're talking about having backlash, you're going to have a big backlash if you're banning people from just smoking in the public park and they're 20 feet away from someone at Porter Park, then that is going to create an issue versus saying, hey, let's just have this as a designated smoking area, if there's something we even want to deal with.
That's what I'm asking.
Yeah.
You can't touch cigars though. Cigars are
So,
off.
so let us chew on that.
Okay.
Okay. And we'll come back to it. So
So you want me to go on and get the
Yeah, send me
the
the-
ordinance,
'cause
and then we'll work on that and bring that to you guys in a workshop, or you want just to look at it?
just let us look at it.
Okay.
And I'm sure we're going to get some feedback from the residents about it. So so let us look at it. Yeah, let us look at that.
Okay.
And let's add what Commissioner Purnell mentioned
Okay.
about that, because I was going to ask about, is there a time frame that we're looking at bringing that to the commission?
Got one other thing, and I'd like to ask Mr. Obos, because he brought it just the Airbnbs.
Oh, yeah.
We had another email about a Airbnb, and I also got I got a text from a news person about someone who has an Airbnb on a road in town, and the manner in which it's kept, and he said, aren't there, he was like, aren't there rules for that in the city? And I was like, I informed him that there was state mandates.
They took that over.
State took it over.
Mhm.
There was over 300 Airbnb lobbyists at the Capitol this year, and that we're having to deal with the state giving us the regulations on Airbnb.
Yeah, I mean, you can still enforce, codes and nuisances and occupancies and those sort of things. We can still
Right.
enforce through code enforcement. But as far as can you have an Airbnb in the middle of a residential street, that's up to the state, and they've said you can. But
And,
if there's garbage overflow, I mean, that we can fine them and fine them and fine them.
We still keep our codes.
Absolutely.
Well,
Yeah.
the one that you're talking about, I believe that we all got an email from. That man doesn't even live here. He lives in Texas or somewhere.
Yeah,
that
that
owns
man
that.
lives in Texas.
And there's that big truck parked out front, which is odd. And
I don't know if that's the one.
I'm talking about Alabama. And when the people leave at the end of the weekend, they pile their trash. It is hanging over the trash can and push it out by the street, which is probably on a board on the kitchen sink in there, saying to do that. So then the neighbors have to look at all the garbage all week until Friday, because we get pickup on Friday there.
That man needs 2 trash cans.
Yes, he does. Definitely needs.
We might need to offer him a second trash can. Just say, hey.
But accumulation of trash and litter is a code violation.
Okay,
You just
there you
start
go.
Tell 'em.
knowing
Yeah.
it happens, start hitting them, and then eventually they'll.
Well, my idea.
We don't
Yeah,
have
$250
to
fines, they
at
might
certain
straighten
times
out.
anyway.
Yeah,
It's
or
an-
even
it's an
put in a
offer you
small
can't
for
refuse.
Don't we have
for
restrictions?
where
Times that trash cans
dumpsters.
supposed to be out.
Yes. Yes.
So that might be something, I think we have a restriction or an ordinance regarding the times of trash cans being out, trash cans being pulled
Separate
in.
code for Airbnb, right? You just can't hold them in.
Also- Also, I just wanted to bring up, I went out to Mill Bayou, that whole thing about that street sign out there. Now, I'm not the smartest cookie in the box, but it took me 30 minutes to find that sign. Those streets are the most ridiculous thing I've
Oh,
ever
yeah.
seen. They go around in a circle and then go in and out, and they're all named
Yeah.
Shoreview Drive.
Yeah.
They're either south or north. And then I finally found the sign that they were talking about.
Short future.
It's in the middle. It's crazy. It's in the middle of a neighborhood at a dead end. And now I do have to say, because I used to be in the sign business, the little tiny thing underneath is extremely hard to read. I have to agree with that. I think that could be bigger. But I've never seen a neighborhood like that in my life.
I did,
And
Yeah, I did talk with him yesterday on the phone as well, and one of the things he mentioned is that they may need to look at readdressing the street names.
Do you think? Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, everybody's on the same street.
Yes.
You will get lost if you don't.
Yeah, yeah. And then you have to, I mean, you have to turn right, and then keep looking because they all say the same thing. And then you see that little tiny 2-inch sign, which does need to be.
Be real honest, Miss Tender. How long were you in there? How long were you stuck in that neighborhood?
I drove around it twice because I went in there first. I said, this can't be the neighborhood because I was looking for a realty company that was listed on that map. And there is no realty company in there except in somebody's home, which I assume is against the law too, but it's at an address in a home.
That's probably how they have it listed as their home or business address.
Yeah.
It's probably for that.
Yeah, I don't know. It's all homes, but there's a realty company listed in one of those homes. So that's where I started looking for that. And I'm going, I don't see any real estate company here. There's no sign, no nothing.
I feel her pain, dude.
It was ridiculous. I feel bad if somebody has a heart attack because I'm telling you, EMS will never find them.
Take me to.
They'll never
I
find
agree
them.
100% because at least she said they're all the same. And
I just pictured Mr. Tender being in there for like 2 hours.
2 hours
Yeah.
running around.
Just driving around. Where the hell is the sign at? Yeah, I'm not leaving until I see the.
Where are you? On Shoreview Drive.
Yeah, really. Just keep doing the circle. Do you see my car? Yeah, crazy.
I got a question on the no bayou sign. Is the roads, do they belong to no bayou or they belong to the city?
They belong to the city.
They've been
Okay.
Yeah, that's how we're able to go out and help North Bay Haven with painting their arrows and different things when we had that traffic issue there. And Mr.
Yeah.
Baker went out and met with Mr. Bollinger and Mr. McLaughlin because the roads, they're ours. So that's why we went out and restriped those for North Bay Haven because those are our roads.
Are we also
Yeah, that
watching?
makes sense.
Are we also watching? Remember when Mr. Bollinger came here and said that all the workers would be parked in that parking lot, yada, bust in when school starts? Are we going to be
That-
watching that to
That
make sure
building-
they are?
The building never broke ground. I think it's on hold due to inflation.
Mm-hmm.
You
Okay.
can't just fell out of their budget with everything getting expensive.
And you know the other thing, this has nothing to do with anything except I'm going to say it out loud. When I was out looking for that silly sign, I ended up in a neighborhood over there, the Thames project. You know what I'm talking about.
yeah, the apartment complex.
If you get back in there, you can't get out. There's only one way in and one way out.
Yeah, we did that.
You end up down in the apartment and I'm going, oh no, I'm gonna be able to turn around. Hell no, you can't. You're stuck. You gotta turn around and go all the way back.
Right.
I would think that would be illegal.
Because we were trying to get them an exit away from the school, and
Yeah.
now that's the only way
And
they
it was
can get
blocked
in
by
and
the
out.
pipeline
Yeah,
and
or we
all
were
that.
trying to
Are
get
there
them.
two?
We were trying
That's
to get
gonna
them
be a
out.
nightmare.
The GPS must go crazy in this area.
Yeah.
I thought there were two.
Well, there are two, there's an entrance up there. I'm saying if you drive, and I did, drive along, and I ended up going around the curve, and at the end, it looks like you'd be able to get out one way or the other. You can't. It's a dead end. What happens to all those people if there's a fire or something? They can't get in or out. I couldn't live there.
I went in there yesterday. So
Yeah, I was there yesterday. I'm surprised I didn't run into you. I was the one slowly driving around looking for that sign.
Well, thank you all for catching up with us on your weekly adventure. We'll buy you.
Yeah.
Hopefully everyone has a great weekend. See you Tuesday. Don't forget we're at the Garden Club Tuesday. So remember we're at the Garden Club Tuesday morning.
At
Okay.
9 o'clock.
9
o'clock.
9
Gotta
a.m.
allow more time for that.
Yeah. So Garden Club 9
We'll need
a.m.
to put a sign
I
up
can get here in like
on
8
the door.
minutes.
Meeting adjourned.